India. India is a land of diverse cultures, timeless traditions, and rich heritage. Banking and financial inclusion of every individual plays a crucial role in the economic development of the country. However, the sheer, diverse, and expansive landscape poses a challenge for setting up of brick-and-mortar banks and financial institutions in every nook and corner of the country. There was a need to bridge the gap between a potential customer and the bank. Sabke in Hindi means for everyone, and in English it means below 1,000. The name symbolizes its vision of universal financial inclusion by creating technology-enabled touchpoints within 1,000 meters of every household.
What we do, we essentially link banks to last mile customers, the unbanked customers, in the regions where banks don't necessarily reach them in a brick and mortar fashion. So they tie up with us and we kind of find the right customer base, acquire those customers, do all the paperwork that's required so that the bank then onboards this customer and provides the services, whether it is savings service, whether it is loans or any other payment services. We enable those things by acting as a bridge between the borrower and the lender or saver in the bank.
మేము వ్యవసాయదారుని నేను ఇక్కడ డబ్బులు వేసుకోవాలన్నా తీసుకోవాలన్నా అనుకూలంగా ఉంది ఆ బ్యాంకులో వేసి సమయం వృధా చేసుకోకుండా ఇక్కడనే అనుకూలంగా తీసుకొని మా పనులు మేము సాగించుకుంటున్నాం.
The way the model works is that we deploy a fleet of agents on the ground, typically local retailers who run their own regular shops. We try and convert them to act as or double up as a bank. Effectively, they become human ATMs. We hand out this low-end technology equipment, which is a mobile phone and a small printer, and they sort of then use their own cash, which is generated in their regular business, to be able to provide services to the communities around them. Over a period of time, we also added many products on this platform. We now give out loans in groups of women. We give loans to individual entrepreneurs. We collect savings. We do money transfers. We allow people to withdraw their account balances. So that's kind of how we have built the whole model, which is in a way a model that enables any financial institution.
Sabke's feet on the street and technology platform which it developed really helped the bank to go out and expand their operations in these areas. So over the last 5 years, we have grown 100 times. We are well recognized in the banking world. We have a good support from our investor team. We see that confidence keeps on growing. We have recently concluded 2 rounds of investment and investor confidence is really high on us. All this has happened in a very short while. There is no looking back from here. That's what I feel. We are growing and we are growing very strong.
Sabke has developed software applications that are integrated with core banking systems and work on mobile phones, allowing the users to perform financial transactions in a safe environment, eliminating the need for a traditional brick-and-mortar bank. The future of banking is digital, and Sabke is doing its bit in moving India towards a safer, more accessible digital space. With Sabke expanding its reach and its ever-growing customer and agent base, we are positive that the company's mission to connect every individual and household to mainstream financial system, thus promoting an inclusive and prosperous economy, standing true to its motto, Sabke liye samriddhi laye. Financial inclusion is the way the government of India strives to take the common man along by bringing them into the formal channel of economy. Sub-K Impact Solutions Limited manages and controls inclusive transactions on end-to-end basis through recruitment and training of local entrepreneurs as business correspondent agents who serve as human ATMs at the last mile of connectivity, thus ensuring them access to basic banking transactions. Let us meet one such determined agent couple.
సురేష్ కుమార్, నాకు మా వైఫ్ ఉమాదేవి, నాకు 2 పిల్లలు ఉన్నారు. నేను ముందు ఎస్బీఐలో టెంపరరీ జాబ్ చేస్తాను. అందువల్ల నాకు కానీ మా భార్యకి కానీ ఇద్దరికి ఎస్బీఐ సిఎస్పి పాయింట్లు తీసుకున్నాము. ఇంతకుముందు మాకైతే ఏ విధంగా సోర్స్ లేదు. ఎస్బీఐ సిఎస్ పాయింట్ తీసుకున్న వల్ల మా ఫ్యామిలీకి కానీ మాకు గాను మా ఊర్లో కానీ మా గౌరవము అంతా కొద్దిగా పెరిగింది. మేము 10 మందికి సేవ చేయగలుగుతున్నాము. దానివల్ల మాకు ఎక్కువ మేమంటే ఎవరు అనేది ప్రజలకు తెలిసింది. ఏమి ఎస్బీఐ పాయింట్ తీసుకున్న దానివల్ల అది తీసుకున్నాం. వాళ్ళకి మేము హెల్ప్ చేస్తా ఉన్నాం. ఏ టైంలో కానీ క్యాష్ ఇవ్వడం, క్యాష్ డిపాజిట్ చేసుకోవడం.
The customer service point aims at providing various basic banking services like cash deposits and withdrawals, fund transfers, etc., along with various government schemes to the unbanked.
కస్టమర్స్ బాగా సర్వీస్ ఇస్తాం సార్. 9కి ఓపెన్ చేస్తే నైట్ 8:30 వరకు ఉంటాం సార్. అప్పటి వరకు బాగా చేస్తాం సార్. బ్యాంక్లో పోతే 1 అవర్ 2 అవర్స్ నిలబడుకోవాలి సార్. వాళ్ళు తీసుకోవాలనే కట్టాలనే. అందువల్ల మన దగ్గర అయితే త్వరగా బెస్ట్ సిఎస్పీగా 2019లో ఇచ్చినాను సార్. ఏపీవైలు బాగా చేస్తున్నాం అనేసి ఇచ్చినారు సార్. 2019లో ఇచ్చినారు సార్.
టీఎంఎస్బీవైలో ఎంటైర్ స్టేట్ ఫస్ట్, ఏపీవైలో సెకండ్ ప్లేస్.
We at Sub-K constantly aim at making India a financially inclusive country, for which we have partnered with various trustworthy banks and appointed agents on their behalf and will continue to do so.
बंसल जी राम राम।
राम राम जी राम राम। धन्य भाग हमारे जो आप हमारे यहाँ पधारे।
अरे मैं कैसे ना आता, आपने दुकान में इतना काम जो करवाया है, मुझे लगा चलो देख के आता हूँ थोड़ा सा।
अरे नहीं भाई, ऐसा कुछ खास नहीं करवाया है। बस इस तरफ करीब 2 फीट और उस तरफ लगभग 4 फीट बढ़ाई है। पीछे एक छोटा सा गोदाम भी बनवाया है। वो क्या है कि दुकान थोड़ी कम पड़ने लगी थी।
बहुत बढ़िया बंसल जी, बहुत बढ़िया। लेकिन एक बात बताइए, ये सब आपने करा कैसे? मेरा मतलब
बैंक जितना दे सकता था दिया, और आपकी दुआओं का असर।
अरे बंसल जी, हमारी दुआएं तो हमेशा आपके साथ हैं, लेकिन बैंक ने लोन दे कैसे दिया?
अरे इसमें कौन सी बड़ी बात है
भाई, मैं अपनी दुकान के लिए बैंक गया, कई फाइनेंस कंपनियों के चक्कर काटे, लेकिन सबने एक ही जवाब दिया कि आपका खाता तो खाली है, कुछ हिसाब किताब का ब्यौरा।
क्रेडिट हिस्ट्री।
हाँ, क्रेडिट हिस्ट्री। अब दिन भर इतने ग्राहक आते हैं जाते हैं, एक एक का हिसाब रखना तो असंभव है बंसल जी।
असंभव को ये तो संभव बनाया है PayNearby ने।
PayNearby?
इस ऐप को डाउनलोड कीजिए और बन जाइए इसका मेंबर। अपने ग्राहकों का खाता इसमें खोलिए, फिर कोई खरीदी के लिए आए तो इस ऐप को ओपन कीजिए, कैलकुलेटर से सामान का हिसाब लगाइए और फिर उनके खाते में जाकर क्लिक कीजिए। फिर देखिए सेल्स रिपोर्ट, सारी क्रेडिट हिस्ट्री अपने आप तैयार। अब जाइए बैंक वाले के पास और हक से मांगिए अपना लोन।
वाह बंसल जी, आपने तो कर दी हर मुश्किल आसान।
PayNearby का समाधान, अब हर दुकान डिजिटल प्रधान।
अपने मोबाइल से मिस्ड कॉल दीजिए। तो चलिए साथ में बनाए हर दुकान डिजिटल प्रधान।
क्या हुआ मालिक, क्या पढ़ रहे हैं इतने ध्यान से?
भाई पिछले हफ्ते हमारे गांव में पंचायत का इलेक्शन था। पता है कौन जीता?
कौन?
मेरे बचपन का दोस्त तिवारी। अब वो बन गया है गांव का प्रधान और मैं यहाँ आटा दाल बेच रहा हूँ। अरे आइए बहन जी, बड़े दिनों बाद दर्शन दिए। सब ठीक तो है ना? कुछ परेशान लग रही हैं?
अरे भाई साहब, परेशानी की ही तो बात है। अभी कैश की जरूरत है और वहाँ एटीएम के बाहर 1 मील लंबी लाइन लगी है।
हाँ वो तो है।
ये राशन लेना है और उसके लिए पैसे चाहिए। परसों घर पर कथा रखी है, उसके लिए खरीदी करनी है। ऊपर से आज सुबह सुबह बेटे का फोन आ गया इंदौर से, उसे वहाँ भेजा है न पढ़ने के लिए।
भाई ये तो बहुत अच्छी बात है।
वो तो है, लेकिन बच्चे को पैसों की जरूरत आन पड़ी है और अब उसका भी इंतजाम करना है। ये सब कुछ मुझे ही देखना पड़ता है, इनको तो फुर्सत है नहीं। ये क्या है?
आपकी हर समस्या का समाधान। PayNearby। मतलब मैं समझाता हूँ। आप यहाँ सिर्फ अपना अंगूठा लगाइए और ये आपको जोड़ देता है आपके आधार लिंक बैंक अकाउंट के साथ। आपकी जरूरत के हिसाब से ये बन सकता है आपका एटीएम, यानी आप दुकानदार से कैश ले सकती हैं। ये बन सकता है आपका बटुआ, यही बन सकता है आपके पैसे ट्रांसफर करने का जरिया। अब भेजिए जितने पैसे भेजने हैं बेटे को, बिना किसी फिक्र के।
अरे वाह भाई साहब, आपने तो कमाल कर दिया। वो हमारे गांव में होता है ना,
ओ प्रधान।
हाँ हाँ वही प्रधान
जी।
जो हमारे पूरे गांव की भलाई की जिम्मेदारी लेता है।
मालिक, फिर तो आप भी बन गए प्रधान।
प्रधान नहीं, डिजिटल प्रधान।
दीजिए मिस कॉल, बनिए PayNearby के डिजिटल प्रधान और दीजिए अपने बिजनेस को एक नई उड़ान। PayNearby का समाधान, अब हर दुकान डिजिटल प्रधान।
अपनी दुकान को आधार एटीएम बनाकर कस्टमर्स को एटीएम ढूंढने की परेशानी से और एटीएम की लंबी कतारों से बचाइए। दीजिए सर्विस और बेहतर। PayNearby से जुड़ने के लिए आज ही अपने मोबाइल से मिस्ड कॉल दीजिए। तो चलिए साथ में बनाएं हर दुकान डिजिटल प्रधान।
A very good evening and a warm welcome to all our viewers on Zoom and Facebook Live. We welcome you to Basic Sabke Samvad, where we facilitate conversations with social sector innovators, influencers, and integrators. This webinar series is our tribute to late Mr. V. Nagarajan and late Mr. Amit Mehta, founding members of Basic's Social Enterprise Group, who were both stellar personalities who left behind a rich legacy and an indelible imprint on the social development sector. Thank you very much for taking out time and joining us for what is surely going to be a stimulating and engaging session. Sabke Impact Solution is a comprehensive financial services provider reaching more than 5 million households with a range of financial services through various channels and partners across the country. Sabke offers affordable, accessible, and scalable financial solutions to underserved communities with high tech and touch capabilities in pursuance of its vision of a financially included India. PayNearby is a fintech company offering financial and non-financial services to the underbanked and unbanked segment. It empowers retailers at the first mile to offer digital services to local communities, thereby boosting financial inclusion in India. Today's session will be a freewheeling chat about first mile fintech with Mr. Anand Kumar Bajaj, founder, MD, and CEO of PayNearby, and will be moderated by Mr. Sasidhar Thumuluri, MD and CEO of Sabke Impact Solutions. We will be hosting a Q&A session in the last 10 to 15 minutes and would request our viewers to post their questions in the chat boxes on Zoom and Facebook. Now, without further ado, I would like to call upon Sashi sir to begin today's session on First Mile Fintech. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're all zooming in from. A warm welcome, and let me also take this opportunity to thank our esteemed audience who have been so generous with their time and also with their encouragement. Without your support and encouragement, we couldn't have reached this far. Sincere appreciation for your participation. I hope we are able to serve the purpose of your joining this series. Today's guest is what I call a revolutionary entrepreneur who is redefining the way banking for the masses has been done in India. Anand Kumar Bajaj, founder, MD and CEO of PayNearby, an IMA alum and a chartered accountant. Anand is a founder, MD and CEO of Nearby Technologies Private Limited. With over 18 years of experience in banking, digital payments, and mobility, Anand holds 5 patents in banking technology and worked earlier with Yes Bank, ICICI Bank, and Ernst & Young. Previously, he was the President and Chief Innovation Officer at Yes Bank, where he steered several high-impact programs in digital payments. Anand has actively participated in steering committee of NPCI, shaping the IMPS and UPI industry, and has been a member of RBI's ad hoc committees on mobile payments and also in NUUP. At the Fintech startup, Nearby Technologies, Anand and his team are committed to enable financial inclusion by empowering retailers to offer financial and other services to the first mile digitally. Anand also is the Vice Chair of Business Correspondent Federation of India, in which he plays a larger role actively pursuing industry interests at various levels. A highly awarded fintech, Nearby Technologies started its journey in 2016, offering financial and non-financial services to the underbanked and unbanked segment. Nearby Technologies works on B2B2C model. We will hear more about that from Anand as we speak with him. Empowering retailers at the first mile, as I was saying. And this was founded by Anand along with Subhash, Yashwant, and Rajesh. Together, they bring a rich experience in banking, payments, and financial services. Nearby is a DIPP certified fintech startup, partnering with various financial institutions, including major banks, payment gateways, NPCI, NBFCs, and FMCG companies. It is a sole technology provider for using Aadhaar-enabled payments and IMPS to Yes Bank, making them one of the 2 fintech companies hosted on NPCI platform. Thank you, Anand, for accepting our invitation and willing to share your story with our audience. Looking forward to an insightful conversation.
Thank you, Sashi.
Anand, yeah, thank you. Sorry.
No, just saying it's a delight to be here, Sashi. You have built an amazing platform, and who not has spoken before me here. So it's a credible platform that you have built. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Anand, let's start, maybe for the benefit of our audience. I'm sure a lot of them might have heard you on various platforms, but it would be good to remind them of your story. So how come a traditional banker became a disruptor of the own industry that he comes from? Could you please enlighten us with your story very briefly?
So no different story, Sashi. I'm one amongst you and one of the audience who listen to you and your Samvad. And just like you all, a struggler, committed to objective person, a sincere person. Regarding your compliments or comment on being a banker earlier, I must tell you that when I was a banker, I never owned that, and I played as if I am not a banker. Spare me the horror when I'm out now, please. So that said, now it is important to understand that this profession of banking has evolved bits by bits over years, and reasoning in many ways and many aspects would help banking evolve. And having served at ICICI Bank under the leadership of none other than Nachiket More, Madam Kalpana More Paria, or Madhavi, the insights that one has gathered has to be applied in this lifetime, and there are enough and more things that we do. If I were to dedicate from Nachiket that no growth is self-sustaining if it is not inclusive, it is self-destructive. And applying empathy comes from his leadership tenets, and we did get fortunate enough to work on few projects with him. Or Kalpana More Paria giving us the leverage to question and reason everything. Or Madhavi Puri Butch teaching us hard way, never say no spirit, and saying that add value to where no one else wants to work. Brings automatically, directionally us to the places which are not leveraged well, which are not attended to well. The story which comes from reasoning in my life, if I were to tell that right from every stage in my life, I have grown basis reasoning. When I was being taken to school in Birla Public School, Pilani, for admission, Sashi, I had failed in admission test when I was 5 years old. And during the interview, I asked more questions to the headmaster than he asked me, including who is that bald gentleman on your wall, because I had my grandfather's photo. Why are your glasses blue? Why not everyone else feels the same heat? Why have you only kept your glasses blue? And he said, Bajrang Babu, leave this guy behind. He asks a lot, he told to my dad. Jumping out of the school to college, I went to my college principal, Hansraj College, Mr. Vidya Lankar, asking, what subject do you teach? Sanskrit. I had actually 97% marks in Sanskrit, Sashi, in my class 12. And the admission clerk at the college wasn't giving me admission. And I just asked the principal that what fun is it, vice principal Vidya Lankar, that what fun is it that you teach a subject like Sanskrit and the clerk does not admit? And he said, no, you will study here, come along. Things happened in life, Shashi, one after the other, where I saw the advantage of reasoning that we got fortified by working at ICICI or at Ernst & Young. There is a lot to do. It led to bagging 5 patents in banking. If we were not to question basis Kalpana More Paria, section 623L of banking, saying that bankers can create and safeguard their rights, and patent being a right, I was permitted to file for 5 patents at ICICI into automations. So yes, one of those reasonings also led me to create, from when I was at Yes Bank, I was architecting this direct agent network program, and where people said that who will go and do it and what's the reason of doing it. And I reasoned it well, so much so that I said my neck is out, I will go and do it. So that's a story in short, Sashi, if I allude to it.
Very interesting. I think you kind of found your way, to get into various streams. And I think here also you found a platform that you wanted to test yourself, which is a very, very interesting way to get into business. A lot of people don't take that kind of risk. But then, we know that India, of course, is leading in the payment space and has gone a long way, right? And of course, much to do. So you kind of entered slightly late, I would say, in the payments space, right? So why payments, and how did you think you will be able to crack, the story that a lot of people really struggle, even today struggle to do well? What's your business model?
Remember, Sashi, I was on the other side of the table when I was in the banking, and it itched me, it pained me that there is so much to do with monthly volumes of work that we did at Yes Bank in my program, Yes Money, then 300 crores. And I could easily see a 0 or 2 zeros on the right side of that 300. And we said that certainly the banking is essential and it has to be simplified. As simple as Pratikshamev Pramanam, you put thumb and you get money. You don't have a booklet or a manual for learning payments with hands. And why payments? Because everything starts with payments and ends with collections, unfortunately, in the current times. And payment is payment. If you give money to God, it's chadhava. If you give it to tax, it is tax. If you give it to beggar, it's donation, or to charity, it's donation, or to a merchant, it's a payment. So it starts there, that the life starts to somewhere, I would say, it's a with especially India coming onto the consumption story with the surplus in hands, people want to pay. But if you make it easier for them, for very simple example, 1 trillion INR remains unaccessed for the DBT money. And if that is allowed to be utilized for payments, there is so much of artificial hoarding of consumption, if I may say, holding of consumption. My scale orientation came with the engagements with NPCI and Dilip, Mr. Hota, Ram Rastogi, amazing people in NPCI those days. From 8 hours, 10 hours NEFT to Saturday, Sunday mute remittances would not happen. When we experimented with IMPS in those days, we saw that India moved from the disbelief to non-tolerance today. The disbelief then on a Saturday that money can go, and non-tolerance today on a Sunday night that you better shut up and send money because I know it goes. So that's the power of applying technology in payment space. For PayNearby, we do everything, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, like I said, the Aadhaar ATM, bill payment, card payment, domestic remittances, EMI collection, financing retailer, granular liability, hyperlocal enablement, or insurance, and so on. So work is enough, everything linked with either payment or collection. So debit or credit, like as a chartered accountant, I would say. With regard to business model, Shashi, I must tell that no social enterprise can be viable unless it's commercially stable. And hence there has to be an iota of money to be made in the work that we do. But the saving grace is that serving the unserved, underserved, and misbanked segment at scale gives you a small profit, be it at large scale, and keeps you sustained. So that's broadly the business model, Shashi.
Yeah, of course. I mean, one looks at it in that sense. Every transaction in a banking or even outside of it is a payment, right? Money moving in and out has a lot to do. And I know the volumes that you manage to bring on your network. I'm sure you are definitely taking advantage of all the India stack, sort of as a rail that has come about. I think it's a unique India story, right? So could you throw some light on how you are leveraging all these advancements on India stack and other rails that have been built so far? And what are the, you briefly talked about ABCD, maybe a little bit more on what are the products that you offer primarily?
Sashi, the Janthan Aadhaar Mobility Trinity is all powerful Trinity, and the power of Pratakshamev Pramanam, you are you who you are, you say you are right now, right here in front of me, is beyond compare. Sovereign most identity, sovereign most establishment of proof of truth. The using Janthan, the government did a fabulous job with PSU banks to open accounts pan-India. But these are all dry pots. The pots were created, but the money flows were not happening. And hence we worked on the mobility aspect when we started remittance services, so that at least let the money flow into those accounts so that people can withdraw, consume, or take insurance. The 4 key principles of the inclusion that RBI speaks of: micro saving, micro credit, micro insurance, and micro transactions. So the whole thing started with the remittances into it. We call it pizza bread, that once it is established, then you can lay toppings on top of it. But it has to be thin, consistent, and far-reaching, no value of its own, but it has value accreditation through the toppings that come along. So the A, B, C, D, E, F, the top-ups that come along makes it viable. But from Samanvay and Vitran, which is NEFT collection and then distribution of NEFT, to Prasar, which is a UPI or IMPS, those things rode well on the India stack. And I would add NPCI modules as part of India stack. It's a great platform that they have built. Remember, the 115 million debit cards which went out of circulation in November 2019. And soon after, when the government started giving out the subsidy to people in March, it would not have been possible, Shashi, without the protection wave pramanam. So 115 million, when they went to the ATM with the card wasn't working. When they walked into branches were not equipped with Aadhaar. And hence our digital Pradhan partners were invited to many of the bank branches by government, by DBT mission, by UIDI to come and assist customers. Likewise, when in flooded areas in Bihar, when the ATM is below water, what is above water is the thumb. And we do 1,000 crores every year when the flood comes, unfortunately, in that area. Or you look at the Nexal areas where there aren't ATMs, but AEPS works very well. So wherever the unviable ATMs, unsustainable ATMs are not there, or they are not there anyways, Sunil Kulkarni speaks of the numbers, the 6 lakh villages have only 1 lakh bank branches, of which 80% are concentrated in urban. So the mass India does not have access to the banking. Effectively, what we have been able to do, Sashi, in short, if I would say, utilizing India Stack, is you can go to a Kirana store and tell him, Bhaiya, 2 kilo aloo, 1 kilo pyaj, or 250 rupees mere bank se dena. So the merger, confluence of banking and India Stack in terms of payments into the grocery is what we have been able to deliver to India.
Incredible. I think still there is a gap that instead of saying 1 kilo pyaj or 250 rupees mera account se dena, you can say mere account se lena, so that you can also make that merchant payment. Today there are some limitations, and we know we can use Aadhaar and UPI and all those to make that happen. But I think there is much to do in that democratization of payments, so that there's no cash that needs to come out or go. Still, the model can work. So from that perspective, right, I'm looking at the future. Right, the future is very disruptive, hard to imagine. So what do you see? I mean, the whole evolution is questioning to some extent whether payments as it is seen today. Still, there's so much cash out there, so digital pradhans are still relevant. But do you see future of payments? How is it evolving in the first mile?
So the fact that future is now, and it is interesting. Fortunately, like Formula One, it is self-driven and you don't have a guidebook to it. From nothing broken cash economy to bringing of a credit card, then bringing of pay later or moving on to e-commerce, things are evolving, and times will be very different, you will see soon. If I say that the UPI cards have become a fashion in rural, and it will become essentials very soon. It is not out of place to say that this is the future. People have started doling out card out of fashion, knowing that the retailer is not equipped with digital payment. The good part is that there are enough and more broken pieces lying there of the Lego block, and we have to assemble, and there is enough material to make the bridge, build the bridges here. With data connectivity coming in, you will see that lot will evolve with the Open architecture, with the account aggregator architecture, or the ONDC architecture announced recently by the government on the digital commerce. There is a lot more integration and swift engagements that will happen. That said, the regulatory spec work here by Reserve Bank, or enablement by Reserve Bank or by NPCI, is fabulous, directionally very encouraging. The work by CDDP presented, or the new Innovation Council set up by Reserve Bank with Mr. Hota in the chair there as well, is a telling thing about the future to come. With regard to the future of the agents, I would say that har dost zaruri hota hai. And I was talking to Sharon of IFMR once, and I quoted her September 2013 Economist, which said 750 job types will become redundant in certain number of years, which included, of course, the typists, the drivers, and the cleaners and whatnot. Even the delivery things, they said, will become out of job. And I was telling Sharon in my office, she was visiting Mumbai. She said, Anand, look, everything will change. Certainly, new roles will emerge, new things will come, and the retailers, the agent partners that we say, will have very different job roles probably than later. For example, today we talk about lending, and then we talk about collections from the same retailer. From today educating for financial inclusion, tomorrow they will be advising for investments. You need a trusted partner on the ground. From transactions today to engagements tomorrow, things will evolve. So certainly you need a good, credible digital pradhan. When we say Har Dukan digital pradhan, that is what we mean, that he is a local trusted partner who will guide you through your way in the financial well-being.
Absolutely. So you do believe the touch point is still relevant, and long way to go in making the whole country self-reliant, and I'm sure digital pradhans play a big role in that. But there are always black sheeps in the ecosystem, and you can't completely be sure that everything is going right, especially with such a large retail network that is out there. There's so much dependence on these in a way outsourced entrepreneurs, right? These are all not necessarily fully tied up into your system or any of the BC companies. How do you manage challenges that are related to potentially fraud or compliance issues, anything else that today it's a very regulated industry that we are working in? So how do you manage that?
Yeah, so Shashi, I was mentioning that a regulator genuinely wants us to do a lot, and they have enabled it all in the guidelines. 29th February 2016 happened. It was a leap year, 29th February. There was a cabinet committee note from the DFS. I remember it because we use it often in our work. Para C3 specifically quoted there that banks and partners must work on engaging, onboarding retailers, merchants digitally beyond Aadhaar. And when you pick up the methods on how do you onboard a retail partner, there are these 18 APIs that you play with, and you are almost certain that he's the right guy when you're onboarding. So the key is in onboarding a retail partner. How do you verify and get him onto your platform? How do you train him right and get to do the transactions? How do you apply your data science work on monitoring and supervising the trends? That helps us remain ahead of them. Controlling geotagging, geosensing, geofencing, geotolerance of what kind of agent can do what distance-based transactions. More than the fraud, I think the infrastructure in payment space is due for upgrade. Thankfully, we working with bank partners, we are able to build a parallel stack of end-to-end technologies with NPCI. Yeah. So for example, we worked with NPCI very closely, and during the lockdown, I believe it was the most productive time for us. We got all our 3 platforms, the ASP certification from NPCI for AEPS, IMPS, Micro ATM. In process, we also got PCI DSS certification done, ISO 27001 certification, re-verified. These all things at the back end help you build a robust architecture. And like you said, the bad apples will be there. What is important is to control them as antivirus, not allowing them to breach your firewall and come in and do nonsense. That said, the ground visits that we have with our partners, our sales teams, which is able to do surveillance, the video chat based reviews that we are able to do with our retail partners, it helps a lot. Sashi, am I audible?
Sorry, I was unable to mute myself. Thank you. So, see, I mean, I think this is a very important aspect, that if we are able to manage the network effectively, and like you said, if you have the right systems in place, you can really do wonders. But I'm sure still, managing such a large retail network, one is the fraud part, but there are still many challenges, many pain points that come with operationalizing this whole network, managing such large. I know you run thousands of crores of transactions every month. So what are these pain points if somebody wants to learn this game? How do we manage them?
So I would say these are not pains, but they are opportunities to differentiate ourselves from the boys, if I say mildly. That said, the key things that we have taken care of, the multiple hops that one goes through in a transaction, which leads to failure, our platform to bank to NPCI to the other bank, and then reverse 4 steps. By setting up ASP platform and our own switches, we have been able to handle that pain, as you call it. The uncertainties, the predictabilities of the scale, well taken care of through the AWS migration and 100 core servers that we run. The lack of infrastructure for scale, thankfully, when just after the lockdown, the transaction shot up through the roof, we went 3x, 3.5x. Then the infrastructure was creaking, and we ran to Nandan. Nandan, please help us. How do we do this? Nandan called in Rajan, and then ex-Google. We had certain modules to put up on the Play Store on our app with some efficiency enhanced modules updated. And it was quite supportive. We were able to move things at a rapid speed on Google. Otherwise, the 48 hours updates would have been a challenge. Also, because it's a vast expanse and it is not one Bharat, there are multiple Bharats. Every district, every village is a Bharat in itself. Multilingual is very important, which is what we have been able to handle with branch.ai and other modules that we have deployed. Our apps has multiple languages. Not everything you will be able to do yourself. So there is a big deal of collaboration as a cementing factor force that helps us. That said, at scale also comes the 2 core mantras which we follow through is automate or eliminate. Otherwise you won't be able to scale. And second is stability before scale. So if you are not stable, you should not scale. And hence the pilots and the prototypes and the rollouts in limited areas, and then feedback-based scaling, it was important. More important is the customer retention and customer care. And when so many things are beyond your control on the other side of NPCI, on the other partner banks, provider banks, customers banks, you have to have a lot of automation on customer care, so that while you can ensure your side of the story don't fail, but when it does fail because of things beyond your control, you are able to handle them much more efficiently. So I think these things help us differentiate. The challenges are challenges. All of us face it with Smile.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's not as easy as you are able to present it here. It's a big learning curve, I'm sure. You've gone through, and day to day we go through all this, and with the scale, you know, the stability to scale is a good way to look at it, but scale also can destabilize. So you have to manage the stability, and that's the beauty of what you're trying to do. So let's take one step up, you know, in terms of, you know, how this whole thing is managed. You also play a very active role in the larger policy advocacy through BCFI, vice chair position, NPCI steering committee position, and many other things that you do. So, but you know, I know that the policy environment is very, very conducive, but it's not perfect. You know, we still wish for many changes. So, what would you think, you know, your wish list of changes in the policy that would further deepen the financial inclusion in a positive way?
So, Sashi, I must thank you for being the chair of the BCFI and allowing us to bring up so many matters one after the other and helping the industry evolve. I believe that this leadership is commendable, and we genuinely are fortunate to be working with you at BCFI and even as a partner for collecting EMIs for you, your customers. The policies are well written, I would say, and if I may lightly say that नीति है पर आयोजन नहीं, bank है पर banking नहीं. It's a statement to ponder over, because the policies are written well, but when it comes to the last mile for implementation, that's where something else or the other cracks and the implementation becomes a challenge. But thankfully through BCFI platform, you and we write to the regulators, and they are very mindful. The recent work on TDS that we wrote, RBI has responded and requested IBA to attend to it. The 2 key things, if I would say, if anything could be done, is with regard to viability of the BC agents, which even CDDP under Nandan's leadership commented on and recommended that certain fees should be calibrated for a viable engagement. And second is that when in section 194N proviso 3 of income tax exempts banking correspondents, any banking correspondent of a bank is exempt. The fact that 6 lakh villages have only 50,000 bank branches and the million plus banking correspondent agents who serve with multiple other banks have to go and collect cash from those 50,000 branches only. The policy is written well, but the bank partners would need to recognize it and allow the exemption of TDS to the banking correspondents. That is a core that I would say if this platform could help us relay the thoughts.
And do you think there is a space for self-regulation in this space, and how you think that would evolve?
Self-regulation, self-discipline in any walk of life is important, Shashi, and there is a scope and opportunity, and that too thankful that Mr. Sunil Kulkarni took upon the responsibility and rather a challenge of being the CEO designate for the BCFI SRO. There are gullible customers who get duped because of unwarranted, scrupulous elements in the ecosystem who temper with certain technologies and play with APIs. And I think I'm being very candid there that Shashi, certain practices need to be stopped where unregulated services are being doled out in the name of banking correspondent. And soon there would be policy modules which will be released by BCFI to even the banks of those elements in the ecosystem and to the Reserve Bank. So there certainly is a scope to do self-regulation. Introspection is always good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how is any other way that we can supervise this whole business of retail banking, real sense, banking for masses in that sense, very micro banking in a large scale. So let's see, let's hope. I think that would be the way forward. Coming to, right now we are living in a very interesting times, almost a year now, next 2-3 months, I think we would have an anniversary of COVID lockdown. Probably we'll see this only once in our lifetimes, hopefully. But all of us got impacted, right? Including your business, everybody's business. What was the, how did you manage, and what level of impact did you face, and what are the lessons that we're drawing from this?
So, Shashi, we realized this early on that what strategic direction we had taken were all not for long term, but to be implemented earlier. And during the early days of pandemic, we realized that the infrastructure that we had planned for much later was warranted much earlier. The modules that we were to deploy later were deployed overnights at times, and that is where Google and Nandan helped. Directionally, if you are right, the timing is not relevant then, is what I learned, I would say, with regard to our business. We did not have to drop modules, but we had to prepone the deployments, which were strategically on the roadmap ahead. In fact, for example, jobs nearby, we were planning to do at end of next year, but we were required to, as a need of the hour, to bring it up upfront and get people job and then let them register on the platform. So directionally, I don't think we had any challenge there. With regard to the early days of lockdown, where the essential services was warranted to include banking correspondent, which thankfully through BCFI we wrote, and the Ministry of Home Affairs and others facilitated. The early days when the agents were not willing to come out, and the call for national duty that we Zid Aage Badhne Ki PayNearby campaign that we ran, many retailers opened up and started serving the citizens in their area. The early cash scarcity proved to be wrong. Soon the cash was available. The volume spurt certainly was not at all planned for as much, but yes, we migrated to AWS also to get quick, better responses. But yeah, like you said, smilingly, I may say this, and I did tell to someone who asked me what were the challenges you faced. And after a week, I wrote to him that we did not recognize the challenges because we were busy beating them down. But trust me, every day there was something or the other which kept us busy. So a lot has gone in, and I'm delighted, Sashi, that when we meet our teams on the video calls today and see the performance, the deployments that we have been able to do under tremendous pressure. I just hope my wife is not listening. Sitting at home and working is not easy for either of the sides. And being able to deliver commendable amount of work. For example, the Nivesh, the account opening module that we launched with SBM Bank during the lockdown, is not very easy module in itself in a physical environment when we were to interact. There were integrations with banks that we were struggling during before the lockdown, which went so very smoothly. The ASP certifications, like I said. So I think that we realized that we are a national asset and a platform, and we emerged much stronger. We said that yes, this is the time. Rashtrahit mein samarpit is all we said, and we said, chalo, let's do it. That gave us a lot of courage, Sashi.
Incredible. I think the energy that that I can see in the leadership, which is you, is basically clearly showing on how you were ready to face these challenges. And this experience, I think, will be incredibly so important for us, all of us. And thanks for sharing that. We have a question from one of our friends on the audience. I would ask Anand Raman to come in and ask his question to you. Anand Raman, as we both know him very well, is a friend from World Bank, CGAP. So Anand, please, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi, Anand. I have a question that will probably be of use to some people in the audience who are thinking of setting up or joining this movement of agent network. How do you currently, let's take the good thing first. How do you incentivize good behavior by agents? That's one. And the other side of it is, how do you currently penalize or punish bad behavior by them?
So I would say, Anand, again, the point on how do you onboard and ensure that the accidents don't happen is most important. With formation of SRO, for example, we have a provision, and we intend to start reporting these bad behaviors elements into the BCFI SRO so that any member does not engage on board them. But having said that, from our side, least we do is that there is a network effect. And once a retailer, be it out of intention or unintentionally, there is something that happens, we certainly block him, block the movement of funds. We get our sales team and the partners on the ground activated to go and investigate. And beyond that, we are not a police, but we do report into the police to take appropriate actions. For as small amounts as 2,000, 3,000, which probably is, or a 700 rupee, Anand, would be your cab fare for dinner tonight. But that 700 rupee for that customer is a month's meal ration. Yeah, these customers don't tweet, like I often say. They talk to the God directly, Anand. And we are very respectful of that responsibility. So certainly, if these situations come, we do take whatever is in our hands. We are certainly not law enforcement agencies, like I said, but we do report into and do whatever is possible. With regard to the good behavior, it is self-rewarded, if I may say. Self-rewarded in the sense that, look, what we do, we are like pepper and salt, Anand. We add value to the retailer. He is the guy who has the potato and the meaty part with him. And if we remunerate him for the normal transactions that he does with us, he is very easily able to get more footfall of customers on the network. And like I said, with 2 kilo aloo, 1 kilo pyaj, 250 rupees ka cash dena, their grocery sales also goes up. The credibility gets augmented. So it's a reward in itself. The fact that he's called a digital pradhan, it's a coronation in a way. They feel elated, and they feel it's a chip on the shoulder, like a army official. So that's the comfort that our retail partners, Digital Pradhan, draw with the program that we do. Remuneration wise, it's not too very remunerative. Like Anand, you know the math well. On a 500 rupee transaction, if he gets $2, but if he were to sell a FMCG product, he would make $40. But the amount of footfall that generates is generated out of our transactions helps him get rewarded.
Anand, would you does that answer your question? I think he's back.
Yeah, he's already thanked me. So yes, rest all.
Okay, good.
Anand can take it.
Wonderful. So we have another friend here who has a question on the cost side of it. I think let's see if I can unmute Raghuram. Raghuram, I'm unmuting you. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Anand. I like whatever I heard from you so far. Good. See, the trend seems to be towards, almost zero cost payments, zero cost remittances. The trend seems to be moving towards that. So do you see any scope for reduction of costs for BC companies and agents?
Raghuram, if I may ask, what do you do in life? Are you a banker? Are you
Yeah, I have been a banker. And I'm a consultant as well. But unfortunately, but that is the unfortunate thing. I know, I read your article. There was an article in Economic Times wherein you spoke, why BC agents should be compensated. But
So let me ask, put it in perspective. With a 87 rupees cost of a branch transaction, with a 15 rupee unviable cost of an ATM transaction, and when you pay to a BC agent for no fixed cost of 70,000 rupee per month, which is costed for an ATM, and you pay him 2 rupees for 500 rupee transaction, do you want to classify the sector as social charity or something? That's a different thing altogether. But if you want to keep it respectful, we believe that so look at the customer, what choice he has in the lack of banking infrastructure today. On one hand, we say 6 lakh villages and people have to spend $30-40 by bus to and fro to go to the district headquarters, taluka, to get cash out, right? If that 40 rupees is subsumed into a transaction with such a low fee, what further reduction does one want? With India Post charging 5% for a remittance, MoneyGram, the BC platform charges 1%. What comparative do we derive? By the way, on the free thing, why I asked you was, were you part of the digital savvy greedy segment of India, the 8%? Who are overbanked, over-digitized debit credit card and internet banking, but still they would jump platform to platform for free. Who is giving discount? The 92% of India that we service, Mr. Raghuram, are so the digitized, leave alone marginalized and subsidized. That's the 92% segment that we are serving. And like I said, no social enterprise is viable without a commercial relevance. If we are not relevant, this won't happen. So academically, it may sound good that yes, social charity, free, but you are also generating employments, Mr. Raghuram. Remember, 1 million plus retailers getting a job, extra income opportunity. A lot of unemployed people are depleting margin businesses in retail need to survive in their business by this additional footfall, additional revenue augmenter. So be mindful of all these things. It's not too very much. But by the way, when I said the digital savvy greedy India, the remaining 92% of people are willing to pay to avail that service. They respect the service. They don't have a choice. They have to access it, right? What all want to make free, I would certainly get on to the conversation with you separately. But yes, leave it relevant, leave it viable for people to go and do this activity on the ground.
But Anand, sorry, I'll stop here. But I see what I'm finding is most of these multilateral organizations also, they all the time talk about lowering the cost of remittances, lowering the cost of payment. And India, I know, in my early part of the career, I was involved with BC. So, and we realized that. And then, we tried credit, like Subke model. I'm part of basics. Okay. Let me also qualify.
Very good.
Yeah. So we tried credit just to see that, if we could subsidize savings. Yeah. Thank you. I mean,
No,
really,
most
I
helpful.
appreciate
It helped bring out the thoughts which were lying latent otherwise. But thank you for your question, sir. It was very, very meaningful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raghuram. Appreciate. I think it's an ongoing debate about what is the right price point for what services, and these are important debates to have. Thank you for raising the question. There are another question for you. Ajay, before that question is asked, let me ask you a brief question. Do you facilitate loans on your platform, Anand?
Shashi, we recently tied up with Muthoot, and we have started passing references to Muthoot Finance. We have also tied up with an aggregator platform where we are able to generate leads for loans and give it to the respective banks who are mapped on the platform. That said, we are working with 2 partner banks to do the credit BC engagement, where to our 5 lakh retailers, we can very easily provide FLDG backed terabytes of data backed lending of small ticket. So for 50,000 rupee, if I were to provide to 5 lakh retailers, it's a good 2,500 crore book, not running away overnight.
So hold your thought. I'll invite Juzar Mustan to ask the question on that credit model. Juzar, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Sasidhar. Mr. Anand, this has been a very insightful talk. Thank you very much for your time. My question is around loans and to the rural consumer. I understand that your model, your digital pradhans might also be giving out micro credit loans to local consumers. How do they determine the credit worthiness of the people to whom they will give out this credit?
So while we have not got into consumer credit yet, but we are already contemplating this line of thought that beyond artificial intelligence, Mr. Jazar, there is human intelligence. The tasir, the tehzeeb of the local interaction is known to him. The pulse is known to the retailer. What is the interaction he has with a consumer? He would know the name of the kid. How old was he when he came here for the first time? The memory of the retailer is amazing. I'm sure you would relate to it that retailer would by default remember you, dobara wahi cheez de dun. Sorry, should I serve you the same thing that you took last time? Or you did not take this last time, take this time. The intelligence that these people have already, we will be able to harness it. We will be able to harness it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, so basically the local intelligence, the local knowledge that these touch points can provide is not yet there in the digital world, and it takes probably a while before artificial intelligence replaces that knowledge. So absolutely, I think they definitely play a big role in creating that credit layer. Let me invite Vijay Kumar. He has a question on your APIs part of it. See, he can ask it. Yeah, Vijay.
Hi, Anand. Hi, Anand. Hi, Sashi. Thank you for a wonderful section. So, Anand, I just wanted to understand, you were mentioning about your retailer onboarding API, those 18 APIs that you were mentioning about, right? So, I come from a digital lending platform for small and medium trucking companies. So, for us, the onboarding is a challenge. So would want to understand how are you onboarding these retailers and what are those APIs that are available out there?
So certainly, it's not as an API available to the outside world from our platform. It is for captive consumption. We are not sellers. We are not vendors. We certainly are partners. So if there are things that we will be able to share, we will be delighted. But if you basically see, there is PAN validation possibility. There is account number possibility that you can verify. You can see GSTN verifications. You can do passport, driving license, the Gumashta license, and there are so many more things that will help you automatically able to fetch detail from the source, the right sources, the code.
That said, the digital KYC with your OCR and ICR, where you do blink detection, live detection for face recognition, and the most sacrosanct is the eKYC that you are able to play on with if you are a regulated and a permitted entity to do that. And do look up to the Karza and Signsy APIs. They have some fabulous modules as well.
Got it. Thank you, Anand.
Great. I think the pricing question still is out there. And I think it's a practical BC world question. One of my colleagues, Sushil, wants to extend that argument a little bit. So Sushil, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Shashi. Hi, Anand. It's been a wonderful conversation I have been hearing from you. My question is that how do you foresee the future of BC outlets, particularly when the banks are reducing their commission charges now?
So there are various models, and I am a believer of win-win. I don't believe that if one bleeds, the other should gain. For example, the fixed cost model that certain programs are paid in setting up rural BC outlets or the branch extension counter, so to say, with 10 counters, 10 transactions, 15 transactions a month, is certainly not viable. And I do hear that a couple of large good PSU banks have also migrated to per transaction mode. That said, the per transaction mode is good for the customer, good for the bank, and likewise good for the BC, because there is a footfall with relevance that when required, people are coming to avail the service. And I think there is a pressure on this particular service that if the banking correspondents were to remain viable, it has to be a relevant fee remuneration for them to be able to service well. Otherwise, this won't be possible. The fact that 6 lakh villages do not have a banking touch points yet, if one were to look at the 200,000 ATMs, which are largely concentrated or co-located with bank branches or in urban centers, or maybe 2,000 in Mumbai and 1,500 in Hyderabad, another 2,000, 3,000 in Delhi maybe. So those kind of concentration in urban centers and the unviable ATM, the fact that ATMs are not viable. So if you really want to do banking and reach out the services to people, it has a least cost to it. Look at it like I was explaining to Raghuram, that the relevance needs to be drawn. Otherwise, if all the banks to open bank branch when they were given an opportunity to open account and seed it with Aadhaar during the Aadhaar dissemination, less did we know that so many people will not be able to get banking. There could have been a red flag then and there, right? When everyone, me and I, you all, everyone went into the rurals to sit with the Aadhaar table, and next transaction after the registration for Aadhaar was to get a bank account. One could have very easily thought that how would they get DBT when the money would come in here in the bank account? The bank hai par banking nahi problem would have been flagged off then. But yes, in the right spirit, the work was done. And now that when infrastructure is required to be set, I would say banking correspondent is a national infrastructure. It must be given that credence support from the government. These are also employment generation opportunities for so many people to be able to add value to their livelihood and serve citizens. The fact that 1 trillion INR remains unwithdrawn in itself is artificial blockage of consumption, which is a whole vicious cycle, because you charge 1,400 rupees for a gas cylinder to a customer, and he gets 700 rupees as subsidy in his bank account, but he does not know. And all he ends up blaming is that there is inflation. The cost of gas has gone double. Less does he know that he has money in the bank. Forget that he knows he has a bank account, by the way. It's a surprise and delight when he's told that. So consider that mindfully.
But there is still this whole, I would say, friction in some sense that whether there is a price control out there, right? In terms of deciding what is the right price point for the services that are being made. And we know the
So if a CDDP led by Nandan does not make sense, that the price point should be 1%. If a PwC study done by,
that's not the price point today, right? Yeah.
It's not, but that's a recommendation. So I'm saying that if those recommendations don't hold good, then what are we doing, Sashi?
Right. Exactly. So I think there is a way to go. There is some journey to make in terms of making the right pricing available in the space for making it viable, isn't it? So that's the point that I think Sushil is also trying to drive. So there is another question from Praveen, again our good friend, who is asking something on the advocacy session. Praveen, I'm unmuting you. Please go ahead.
And Sashi, I did see Dr. Srivastav raising hands. So
yes, I will come to
Dr. Srivastav, next if you can come, please. Yes.
Absolutely.
Please,
Yeah, hi Anand. Thanks for the wonderful conversation that we are having today. I wanted to get a sense on the advocacy. What is the progress on recognition of white labeled BCs? Training and certifications of BCAs under the BC registry, and similarly access of UIDI database to the private companies. I think that has been off for some time. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a wonderful teaser, actually, I would say. The recognition of white label BC is certainly a thing that we have been asking for to purely avoid the multiple hops and certain dependencies on the NDC or the limits that we have to maintain without being a bank. So certainly that would help, and it's a matter already submitted to Mr. AP Hota, who is chairing he's part of the committee of the innovation committee set up by Reserve Bank, and it has agenda also to promote financial inclusion. So we are taking it up again. The industry has been talking about it for a while. That said, about the banking correspondent trainings, Praveen, you know, this 900-page document is almost good for training you to become a treasurer. Or, by the way, many bankers would fail today in their chairs answering these questions. The real point is that the training module should be modularized. So a retailer who is a grocer and is doing mobile recharges, the banking has been made as simple as mobile recharge. You enter the account number and money goes in. So he should be trained and tested for those modules. Likewise, for someone who's withdrawing money, how does the money withdrawal happen? What are the steps? What happens when a transaction fails? What are the charges? What are the turnaround times of failures, etc. We at PayNearby have built many of such modules on video and in multiple languages to educate our digital Pradhan partners. But when you see the credit VC model, there certainly it makes sense to train him on interest rate, how to compute loan moratorium, now the new buzzword being trained to them, or the mortgage schedule chart, a mod chart, what is the so various things have to be modularized. You can't be teaching engineering principles to a commerce student or a balance sheet management to a art student. But ultimately, that part has to be broken down into pieces, is all we have been requesting, both from BCFI and from all the partner banks have been also writing in. Third, you said about the UIDI access to private companies. This question is out of my syllabus and pay grade as well. But we hope and pray that the right people are given access to the relevant modules for providing the right services.
Yeah, but in a way, what you're demonstrating is also a good precursor to a white label ATM story. Anand, right? In a way, right? But by not creating any competition or a friction, you're also trying to leverage the channel very effectively, which today is a BC is the only way to do it, and there are limitations which we should fight for. Let me unmute our leader Anand Srivastav, who actually opened a lot of gates for this space to happen as a founder chair for BCFI. Anand, welcome. Would love to hear from you. Say hello to our speaker, and maybe you want to say something.
First of all, Shashi, it's great to hear these knowledge series, and for a pastimer like me, as a student, to come and get refreshed on what's going on, and of course, have a beautiful mind like Anand Bajaj, my namesake, leading such wonderful effort, in the industry. With the great work with companies and leaders like Anand and others have done, what has happened is that quite frankly, very large distribution and customer service and other pieces have been set right. So truly, as one would say that you guys have become, just giving an example, contextual example, PayNearby has become a retailer of financial services, quite like Amazon or JioMart or somebody else. Now the problem which is there, which I was just hearing, and it was there during my days also, is about pricing. Now the pricing, as we know, is a function of demand, right? Who brings the customer to the point of sale? Now, so my question here is that to Anand is this: that do you see that there ever will be in the years to come that demand generation is going to be given, the responsibility of demand generation is going to be given to the retailer of financial services, i.e. the BCs? Because that is the time you will be able to then realize your pricing. Am I correct in this thinking? Number two is a quick question on this. Considering RBI's past and their thought that everything is bank led and other things, do you foresee that there will be a time in your trajectory that ultimately you will face the quintessential Rubicon, to be or not to be, that either you become a bank or continue like this? So these are my two questions. Thank you.
I don't dare to answer you, Dr. Srivastav, and you are one of the most respected person that I admire, and the depth of insight, intelligence that you bring, we certainly have been of late missing at the BCFI from you. But yes, of course, many members come together and the show is on. But yes, the offline conversations with you help a lot to shape up my thoughts, and I'm thankful to you for that. With regard to the demand generation and the price, when we say Har Dukan Digital Pradhan, the whole idea is that we want to granularize, sachetize, and universalize the services. Why universalize is that when it is available at every shop and the next shop, there is no arbitrage possible for someone to look at the pricing differently. That said, when you allow free market pricing, you will see the real demand generation then. The demand will be an outcome of free market pricing, which with granularization will automatically go towards south. That's our endeavor. But let it reach there before flying. If you attempt to this, to clip the legs, which will not be required when flying, you will not be able to take off. So the whole point is that the demand will be generated. And let me put a context other way around. You saw that when ATMs were allowed to accept cards from other banks, the acquirer bank being one and the issuer bank being another, did you read out the posters outside shouting louder than the name of the bank that any bank ATM cards are allowed here? Because the acquirer bank was able to earn money from the offers transaction. You allow that pricing liberty in the market, you will see. I in fact believe that if the banks were to be given extra advantage of distributing out the DBT money, no one would mind throwing it out and earning more rather than letting it remain there and earning a sleeping float on that money. So the pricing is the prime essential that I see today as an argument which will lead the demand creation. Demand is there, it is latent, it is unknown actually, I would say. The demand will get created when low cost, and easy, convenient services are made available. I am not sure it will satisfy your question, Dr. Srivastav. But on the second part, on to be or not to be, this is not a question. The question to us is that you want to be a manufacturer or a distributor. Because being a manufacturer, which is a bank, is a very different skill set, and it is required. People say bank will not be there. I strongly contest that we work and we provide payment services, digital enablements, because there are partner banks at the back taking care of the entire paraphernalia with regard to banking, regulation, compliance. They are like the lagam hai hamare sar pe wo. They are the reins, helping us get right directional flows. But with regard to we aspiring to be a bank, I don't think there is a time yet to look at that role today, because as a banking correspondent, you can do everything effectively: the payments or the distribution, the lending, the collections, the account openings. In fact, at times much more than a payment bank could do or a small finance bank could want to do. So treat us as feet soldiers. We are there to create market rather than compete with the banks.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, banking has a very important role, and they do require retailers like you, very large retailers like you, to to get the product to the end customer. Absolutely. Best of luck.
Thank you so much, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Srivastav. Honored to have you here. Anand, I think in a way, payment banks is tried but not so much successful attempt in terms of converting this whole payment distribution model into a banking structure. But I think that was a bit of a unnecessary attempt, in my opinion. Hasn't paid off, except of course our Fino brothers will contest that. But I think 9 out of 10 would agree to that point of view. So with you on distribution versus manufacturing. One last question. I know we ran out of time, but we are very relevant and I think more related to what to be, not to be question in a way. But let me unmute Pranay, who is an entrepreneur in his own right, trying to solve a big question for MSMEs on lending side. He's working with us as well in basics. So, okay. So Pranay, please go ahead with your question.
Thanks, Shashi. Thanks, Anand, for the insights during the session. My question is simple. You're an entrepreneur and you clearly would have a vision, long-term vision. So assume it's 2025. How do you see what you are doing, how it's going to change, transform? So let's assume we are in 2025. Who is your largest competition, and how things are going to change?
So I don't know about 2025, but 3 years into the gauge, if you are looking at, we see the banking transforming with the UPI coming in. It's quite a helpful module, I would say, to not only enable payments, but most important is to give the comfort of easy access to money to people. Because if people believe that they can access their money easily, they will start saving, and the money stacked up will get into the right usage. That said, with the widespread reach that one would have done on platform like PayNearby, we would become de facto design and something which will not be required to be spoken of, but it is there, is what our belief is. For a corollary, I don't have an example to quote here, but there is something that you need, but you don't need to seek for it. It is at every shop and it will be omnipresent. The key is that beyond banking services, what we are able to do with regard to diversification of our revenue and increasing the revenue from multiple sources with the purpose of reaching out various services to same set of customers and through the same set of retail partners. So 500,000 retail partners today, the digital pradhans serve 150 million citizens, we don't call them yet as customers, because citizen is a higher pedestal. We believe that we are catering to them today as a national duty. That said, when we have integrated very recently things like Amazon on our platform, and a retailer can sell you a football when you don't have a sports shop in your village, when you are able to say, give me a 1 month OTT of a Z5 or a Hotstar with Aloo Pyaj Bangan Bhindi at the same retail outlet, is what we have accomplished. When you are also able to carry a helmet and a retailer tells you, bhaiya bike hai, insurance le jao, take an insurance for your bike. Those kind of intelligent, deep engagements with the retail partner and the consumers at a nearby shop is what we are building as an experience. Important that the user experience, the customer care, and the simplicity of services without occupying his shelf space. We see many retail earn more than their grocery shop as a margin, or in fact, in a competitive market where the DMart, the Big Basket, the grocers are selling green tea for 76 bucks, whereas the buying price for my retailer is 120 odd rupees. In that competitive market, if I'm able to help my retailers to service 150 million citizens, and then the whole India, which remains unbanked, underbanked, or misbanked, I think there is a lot to cover. There is indeed a journey from assisted to self-service, which we will be known for. And I promise you on this platform today that you have asked that if India will transition into self-service mode, you will hear PayNearby as one of the key pillar stones for helping enable that to India.
Great, thank you, Anand. I think we're totally out of time, beyond time rather, and actually this whole high engagement has made us forget the time that we're set. But thank you really so much for your time and sharing all your insights, and opening up our knowledge gates on this very, very interesting business model, and tough business model, I should say. We also manage this, but in a very, very small scale compared to you. So great, so national service, and thanks for sharing everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And the questions were very, very wonderful and well calibrated, Suresh, and other people. Praveen, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you, Sashi, once again for hosting us on the platform. Thanks.
Pleasure. Over to Kiran for closing. Can't hear you. I think there is a voice issue at your side.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining, and we hope that this session has been helpful in shedding some light on the role of fintech in reaching out to the last mile. Don't forget to follow all our social media handles to stay updated about the next session of Basics Sabke Samvad. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Anand. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good night. Good day. Bye. Bye.
नए जमाने के नए हैं रास्ते, लाए हैं कुछ हम सबके वास्ते, सुनेंगे सबके दिल की बात, रहेंगे साथ दिन हो या रात, हम सबके साथ हैं, हम सबके साथ हैं। किसी भी दिन की हो जरूरत या व्यापार हो आगे बढ़ाना, जब सबके का हर पल है साथ, तो साथ ही भला क्यों